Welcome to the Not Null Podcast. I'm just an AI voice, but here are your real hosts, Kevin Doyle, Sarah Kimmel, and Bobby Davis.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. This is episode 30. We've reached a milestone this week. So this is a podcast where we talk about everything tech, AI to VR, and robots to flying cars. This week, I'm joined by Bobby Davis and Sarah Kimmel, and I am Kevin Doyle. Coming up in this week's episode, who's on the EU's Digital Markets Act naughty list? Let's talk about Windows power tools. And then we're going to play a little game of this or that before we talk about our recommendation section, our null, not null recommendations, where we talk about a product or service that we either recommend or recommend that you avoid. So who's on the EU's Digital Markets Act naughty list? So if you haven't seen anything about this yet, this is billed as a set of proactive pro-competition rules on how what they're calling gatekeepers, and that's in quotes, can operate. So the 7 companies that are on this list, six companies that are on this list: Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, ByteDance, Meta, and Microsoft. Pretty big names, right? 5 of which are US-based, 1 of which is China-based. So this is an EU set of rules. And within those kind of 6 brands, there's what they're calling 22 core platforms in their initial thing. That includes the likes of TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Chrome, Safari, Android, iOS, Windows, Google Search, I should say, YouTube. So think of anything that's big in the world of tech as far as software goes, and it's probably on this list. So the criteria for this list, EU said, if you have 45 million active local users, you have a turnover of 7.5 billion euros, which is basically like their revenue of 7.5 billion euros, and you have a market cap that exceeds 75 billion, you will be on this list. So what does this mean? I was like, okay, it's just a list of big tech. So what does this mean? There are some rules they're trying to place on these applications and these brands. So they're saying, these are some of the rules. This isn't all of them. This is some of them. So there is a ban on self-preferencing or gatekeepers requiring business users to make use of their own services. This is one of those like Google promoting Google search within Chrome kind of things. So they're saying they don't like that. So they're going to put a ban on that. Then they're going to put a ban on gatekeeping app stores, preventing the installation of rival stores. This is like if you're on an iPhone and you have to go to the app store, they're saying they don't like that too. So that will be a ban. 2 pretty big ones straight out of the gate. Data portability, one that I actually like, and service interoperability requirements, things like messaging and certain OSs and browsers and search engines and virtual assistants. They're saying you should be able to take your data from one to the other. You should have data interoperability. Okay. And then a ban on stopping users from uninstalling gatekeeper preloads. It's an interesting one. So if there's an installed app that's a standard app as part of your OS, let's say, and you cannot remove it, there's a ban on that now too. So the penalties for this, love the penalties. If you breach this, 10% of your global annual turnover, or 20% if you are a repeat offender. That is, let me say that again. That is 10% of your global annual turnover. So if you're Alphabet, 10% of your, not just EU, your global annual turnover. That's a lot of money. Additional remedies too. They are asking or requiring, I should say, not asking, they're requiring that a gatekeeper sells a business or part of it, or they will ban gatekeepers from making certain acquisitions that will be seen to be non-compliant or seem to be non-competitive in this marketplace. Apple and Google already pushed back on this a little bit. That's with iMessage and Bing, and some other brands have said, we accept this designation and blah, 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 and we'll work with the EU and so on and so forth. So I know you have a really strong opinion about this, Bobby. We talked about it a little bit earlier because we couldn't help talking about it because it was such a hot topic. And I know your thoughts on this. What do you think? Good, bad?
Yeah, it's really bad. Like, in other words, I think this is like an attack mainly on U.S. companies in general. And I don't say this
5 of the 6 are U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, and not because they're just the 6, because they exclude European companies from being designated as a gatekeeper. In fact, the guy said, let's focus on the biggest problems. This guy Schwab, who's running the show here over there, on the biggest bottlenecks. Let's go down the line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe 6 with Alibaba. But let's not start with number 7 to include a European gatekeeper just because we need to please Joe Biden, the president of the United States. And so it's clearly targeted towards U.S. companies. So one company that's not in here that's a European company is like Booking.com. They own Priceline. They own like almost every travel site on the face of planet Earth. They probably set the rates for most hotels. If anyone was in this for price gouging or whatever they want to say, they're in this. Are you sharing information between all those sites? You bet your bottom dollar. You log into Booking.com. They know where you like to stay. You go to Kayak, you get the same thing. They probably set prices based on something between the sites. So it's very, very kind of anti-competitive in my opinion. Now, the thing that I think will happen from this is that if they do all of these shenanigans and Google has to rewrite their OS, they're saying that Apple is going to have to break up their OS into different parts. And if they don't, they're going to find them. And it's just like, well, what's an OS and what's an app store and like those kind of things. And they don't tell them this. The reason these things are vague is because that threat of 20% is what they're going after. This is made to tax U.S. companies so that they can put other European companies ahead of them. And I'm saying, hey, we should do the same thing. I think we should do the exact same thing. We should look at Volkswagen, Mercedes, and every other European car and say, if you bring a car in here, you know that OS that runs on your car, you have to either install Ford Sync or you have to install something else. But you can't use the one by default, and the user ought to be able to pick which one they get. And you're like, well, it's tied to my electric vehicle. Well, it sucks to be you. You need to find a way to make it work. And this is kind of like why I don't like this at all. I think it's very anti-competitive. The other thing is they're talking about these people are entrenched competitors. And believe it or not, the one socialist communist country out there, TikTok, come back and said, we're not an entrenched competitor. We're like new to this game. We're barely like competing with these guys. And they just came on the scene like a few years ago. So all of these companies can be disrupted and they can be displaced. You just have to make a compelling service. I mean, what do you think, Kevin? Do you think YouTube right now is super ripe to be disrupted by some other video sharing vendor out there?
Yeah.
If they would just make one that's a little bit competitive. And we've had attempts here in the U.S., Rumble being one. There's some other ones out there. They're not really.
The problem is the ones that something like Rumble, the problem with something like that is it politically aligned itself. That was its problem.
Right. But you can make one. You can put videos on it, and whether you decide to market it a certain way is up to you as an owner of that service. They decide to go a certain way, and it limits what they're going to actually have in market penetration. But if Facebook decided to make a YouTube competitor, they could. Yeah. They made Threads.
Right.
I mean, they absolutely did it, and they probably put a giant dent into one of the companies down here, Twitter, which I know you find funny, but like
social media platform format on Twitter.
I just think that if you're going to attack U.S. companies out here, and it's really a tax on the American people in a roundabout way, because they're big and because they're successful. And I understand that they can wield power, but I looked at PC growth over the last year to year. The fastest growing PC in the industry was Apple OS. And people say, well, they only got 9% or whatever, but it's like growing at a 10% clip. Whereas Microsoft Windows OS had negative growth over the last 12 months. Why is that? We know why it is. They released the M2, M3 chips, and that has caused people to buy something new. And that's what companies can do. What did Apple do? They took their $1 trillion. They said, Intel, you're not fast enough. We'll just make our own chip. And they went out and they're competing against Intel, which was, quote unquote, be a gatekeeper, entrenched. Yeah. And suddenly, Apple's like, yeah, we'll just make one faster. That's what we do. That's what we do here in the U.S. And I don't understand why other companies can't go out and go, well, let's make our own social media in Europe. They have every opportunity in the world to make a Facebook clone and say, this is the dominant one in Europe, and this is why we want people to use. But they can't. Why? I don't know. It seems like it would be easy to do, but they just don't. And it just makes me mad that they just want to tax people for being successful. And it makes me crazy. Now, is Facebook, Google, and Microsoft, are these guys nice all the time? Do they wield their power with a big stick? 100%.
Yeah.
But you can see, you can actually disrupt these people multiple times. There is no longer a MySpace. They're not here. They got disrupted. Twitter got disrupted by Threads. You can absolutely disrupt these things. I think Blue Sky, if they would have been on their game in time, could have been bigger than Threads if they would have just launched in time, but they weren't ready and they didn't compete hard enough.
Still not.
but they were there. They could have done it. And so they had the right things in right place. So it just makes me kind of angry. And I would fight this. If I was running Microsoft, I'd probably go to lunch with all 5 of these guys and just say, hey, what if we pulled out of the EU? What would happen? Because this guy said these companies are mission critical to operating business inside the EU. You can't run, like, they named all the OSs. It's Android, Windows.
Android, iOS, Windows, Safari, Chrome. Like,
right.
I mean, things
so
that are
we're just
like
going to use
infrastructure
Linux and go to a command line from here on out. That's what we're going to do. Is that what we're going to do? But we can't use Red Hat because
you can imagine run Windows anymore in Europe? Like, imagine what would happen. Like, the banking industry would just fail. Like, then it would fail. Not going to happen, is it?
Crush.
Like, and so and they also didn't mention the hosting vendors. I mean, like, it's so odd that they targeted very specific things. And then the other thing too is when he said that, we have to be ready for a Web 4.0 world. And when politicians say stuff like that, it drives me insane. Like,
they don't know what that means.
What is Web 4.0? He was talking about...
He doesn't even know what it means.
The metaverse. I'm like, can y'all know that the metaverse isn't working right now? And like, Facebook would like it to work, but like, so that's what you're preparing for? You're preparing to tax Facebook in case they launch the metaverse and are successful?
It's Web 4.0 Ready Player One.
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my soapbox. I would compete hard with them. If I was for the government, I would say, man, you can't tax our biggest companies like this. 20% of revenue?
Of global revenue. Like revenue. Not just EU revenue.
No. And so Facebook did the right thing when Canada tried something similar. They said, well, we'll just pull out of Canada. They should pull out of the EU and just say, when you're ready to run Windows again, let me know. Call me up. But it's going to cost a lot more to operate in Europe. And I would raise the prices of Windows in Europe. If it was $119 a user today, it would be $250 or $300 or $500 tomorrow.
That will probably be the effect of this. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, definitely. So Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree with like most of what Bobby says. Because most of the time, I don't think any of these like are so-called gatekeepers. Like, I can choose to put a different browser on my Windows computer. Just because it comes with Edge doesn't mean that I don't have choice. And so a lot of these things, I'm like, well, I really can choose what I want to do. And on top of that, I can choose what operating system I want to use. If I want to use Windows, great. If I want to use Apple, great. I still have choice. And that's why I hate Apple so much, is because it limits your choices. But so that's the one part that I like. And it's just a bias thing for sure, is the whole like EU is going to end up forcing iMessage to incorporate RCS. And like, I just think that's a big win for me. So so that's a whole like just personal thing. I would have loved Apple to just incorporate RCS to begin with. Like, I don't like seeing them forced to do so. I don't think companies should be forced to do that. And then you've already seen it. They're incorporating the USB-C because the EU basically forced them to incorporate USB-C. And so even though I don't like Apple, I hate that they're being forced to do these things. I would have loved for them to choose to do them on their own.
I agree. But here's the thing. I think you can push this too far, because here's what's not going to happen. You are never, ever going to force Apple to split up or sell part of their business or not make a purchase of something. That is never, ever going to happen. Somebody in Europe cannot say, hey, Mr. Company over in the US, you can't do that.
They've already said they want to break Google up, though. They've already come out and said that that's what's going to have to happen.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen here is somebody's going to take their ball home. I don't know which one it's going to be first, but one of them's going to say, nah. One of them's going to do what you said, what Meta did to Canada, and just say, you know what, we're not going to do it. I think what would be better is if they all got together and said, we're not going to do it. Yeah. I would like that, because then what's going to happen? What is going to happen then? They called you a bluff then, because guess what? You're not going to enforce any of these rules. Because like we said, you can't. You literally cannot. You couldn't do without the browsers, the OSs, without Google, without YouTube. Imagine being a European user and having no access to not any of that stuff. It's not even like, you can't even think about it, because it's not even possible.
Yeah,
you really can't. It's not even a thing you can do. So
what
I would
if
like
they just
more pushback.
said, you know what? We look at the EU. There's 27 countries. The two that matter, there's France and Germany, and they just said we're pulling out of those two countries. Lithuania, okay, whatever. Belgium, we like your beer, fine. We'll let you keep it. Germany, we're never coming back ever. Yeah. And just like
maybe
they got to do something. I think
the problem is it's one of the 3 biggest regions of the world, and they're not just going to say we're not going to do business there. That's not what's going to happen unless they collectively say we're not going to do business there. I don't see that happening. I would like to see that happen. I would like to see one of them say nah, and then see what the consequences are. But I don't think it's going to happen unless they all jump in on this. And I mean, being the fact that 5 of them are from the US, maybe the government could even say something. US government could say maybe, hey, let's get these guys at the table and say, well, we don't like this either, because I don't think they do. And say let's put a response back to this that says, this is not something we're going to take into account. What I don't like here too, it's super patronizing.
Yeah.
It is extremely patronizing to call them gatekeepers too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so much like, hey, you'll do what we say, and you'll jump and you'll bark and you'll do whatever we want you to do. Just do our tricks. We're going to tell you what to do, and you will do it, like it or not. I don't like that attitude, and I don't think that's going to get them very far.
No, and it's like they have like agreed, and they've worked with these guys, and they've paid their fines, and they've done these things. And the regulations keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And this won't be the last thing they do. They keep saying, well, we don't want to do investigations. That's why we're putting this together, because we don't want to do an investigation every week.
They just want to collect the 10%.
Yeah.
Right.
20% of revenue. And it's the biggest companies. And to say that Booking.com doesn't qualify when they have 45 million users, when they clearly control prices of hotels, it's really kind of like, that means the law isn't equally applied. And here in the US, we think that's the way it should be. And the rules should apply to everyone if that's the way it's going to be. But they're specifically ruling out non-European European countries. And I don't like that. I mean, in other words, it's an attack on US based companies. And so fine. Guess what, Booking.com?
Here's your fee.
Here's your fee. And Microsoft has a travel site, Travelocity. That's the one we like.
Right.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this, though, was Apple trying to say that they don't have 45 million iMessage users.
Well, I actually thought about this.
I'm like,
so here's the thinking on this, because I thought about that too. I was like, because Apple tried to push back, and so did Microsoft with Bing. And then instantly, I believe Microsoft with Bing. It makes sense, right? Like, it's not.
Sure,
they have
nobody
like
uses Bing.
Well, they have like 3% of search or something. It's tiny, right? But I guess in the messaging space, they clearly meet the monetary amounts, and I believe that they do meet the users amount. But don't forget, it is active users in a local region. So it's 45 million active users in a local region. The messaging app, don't forget, uses both SMS and iMessage, right?
Right.
So I'm guessing they're only counting, or they're trying to say that it's users who use iMessage, iOS to iOS, versus messaging where it's SMS, is my guess. Because I agree, that's the only way they could kind of jump through that hoop.
I bet you're right on that. Like, and what most Apple users don't understand, like the ones that aren't technical, is that iMessage is like a messaging platform. It's not. They just think it's their texting app, and
they do.
They don't understand that they're not texting.
Yes.
So. Yeah. But I bet you're exactly right. I bet they're just counting iMessage to iMessage instead of all of the SMS messages that are also coming in through there.
Correct. That would be my guess. Yeah. So they're trying to get it
which
through
is
on that.
So like,
But I wouldn't be surprised if they don't fall for that one, though. I mean, I'd be pushing back. I'm sure these companies are thinking right now, like, a million ways to try and push back against this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
The initial comments from them were all like, "We accept our designation as a gatekeeper." They're all like, "Yeah." I mean, Microsoft was basically just like, "Yeah, we accept our designation as a gatekeeper." It's like, whoa, hold on, Microsoft, don't. What are you doing?
Don't.
Like,
what are you doing?
Like, push back at least a little bit. Like,
So here's the interesting thing is most of these companies are already in a political group called NetChoice, because Arkansas, and maybe we should have I can't speak today. And maybe we should have spoken about this today too, is that Arkansas put forth a social media law and NetChoice lobbied to a judge, and a judge struck it down and basically it granted an injunction until there can be more investigation. So the law didn't go into effect when it was supposed to. And this is about privacy. So the teenagers in Arkansas, well, actually everybody in Arkansas would have to verify their age in order to use any social media platform. Right. And they, so basically the judge, Timothy Brooks, said that's unconstitutional, but NetChoice is the one, and they have all of these companies, including TikTok, involved in that, in NetChoice. And, so let's get NetChoice up in here and fighting this European.
There has to be somebody looking at this to fight back at this. They have to be, somebody has to be going to these companies now and being like, whoa. We feel like we can group together and fight back. If we're thinking about it here, somebody who has legal standing somewhere has to be thinking of the same thing, right? We're just talking about it on a podcast. If we can come up with that idea, then surely they can too. Yeah. I just don't think that the EU isn't stuff.
This goes way beyond a monopoly. They targeted 6 companies. They could have included more, which tells you that this stuff is uber competitive. Google and Microsoft and Apple are uber competitive against each other. Yeah. And then making even the store is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. I would like to see Apple one day allow you to sideload apps. That would be kind of cool. But at the same time, they do scan those apps. They do offer a service for that store, and it is the only store, and it's the only way they can guarantee that the app doesn't adversely affect the user experience of their device. And they're trying to control their device. I understand what they're saying.
And I would say, as a consumer, I want that. I actually want a walled garden app store. I've been in the Wild West. I didn't like it. I like my walled garden. That's a choice that I've made. One of the reasons that I choose iOS is because I know, and the App Store is because I know that's the experience. If I wanted to come out of the walled garden, I could go Android.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. It's just another choice.
Right. You still have a choice.
If you look down this list, there is competition in every single one of these things. There's Android and iOS. There's Instagram and Facebook. There's TikTok. There's Windows and iOS or Mac OS. There's Android on Chrome and Safari
Linux too. I mean, you can use Linux. I mean, you can.
There's every single one of these has a competition within itself here. The only one that really doesn't is probably YouTube. You could argue TikTok, but I would say it's kind of standalone with YouTube. But I would say most of these have competition. And the problem this is trying to solve just feels wrong to me. They're trying to say we need the small guy to have a chance. That's the whole reason behind this, right? Is that smaller companies need to have a chance. That's
better products.
Exactly. All these companies came out of nothing. They superseded something. They succeeded something before them. So that's how competition works. Let the consumer decide. Make something great. If somebody came out with a better version of YouTube, it would be better. It would be larger. It would take market share. That's the free market. We need to keep that. I agree. It's almost anti-American.
It is. It is. It's very
in a bigger sense.
Socialist.
No, but in a bigger sense. I'm saying not even specifically anti-American. It's anti-American against the idea of just the cream will rise to the top.
Small guy can do whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the free market always figures these things out. Microsoft has tried to make online sharing. You remember Mix? That didn't go over well. I mean, they tried that. Microsoft tried to make a phone multiple times and they couldn't get it right. I mean,
I liked the Windows Phone, but
they lost.
There was no apps. Yeah, because there was no apps.
Yeah, so they lost and they they couldn't win there. And so they're not crime foul. Hey, you've got to give us 30% of the mobile phone user base. Well, okay.
Can you imagine that you're assigned? Can you imagine you're assigned an OS?
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
my
Yeah,
right. You have to be Windows. You can be Mac OS.
It'd be like the lottery in Hunger Games. They pull your number. Maybe the odds
like your
be in
social
your
security
favor.
number. You're assigned your OS, and you're assigned your social security number.
Yeah. At birth, you're assigned your OS. You're assigned your phone type. You're assigned your browser. You've got to be Safari. Sorry. Sorry.
So what color would Apple designate Microsoft phones if you texted in? What
gray.
color would that be?
Gray.
Battleship
a
gray.
boring shade of gray.
Puke yellow. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, the interesting thing though is with throwing back to the Epic Games lawsuit. That's another place where I think, yes, sure, I don't need to sideload apps, but I would like choice in like buying something outside of the App Store. So if like, say I've got Audible or, what's the book? I'm like, Kindle. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was like, Audible, right? You said it.
I know. Well, yeah, same thing. But like if I have the Kindle app on my, on my Android device or on my Apple device, I can't buy a book inside of that without going through the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. I have to use their payment processor in order to buy that book. And I don't think that's fair. Like that's a gatekeeper, I think, where, I have the ability to like bring somebody into my payment platform and not to get a fee from Google Play or Apple. But they prevent me from doing so.
But I would also say that's like a choice you make before, like in buying that device. It's like one of those things that you kind of like, you've made that choice. You could have bought an Android and then done whatever you like.
No, they both do it. Like Google Play is doing it too. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like,
well, it would be the same way too on a Kindle
though
as well, right? It's the same on a Kindle though too, right?
Well, on a Kindle, you buy it through Kindle because like that's the only like it's
Amazon.
Right, it's the same thing. But that's the same thing. I can only buy a book from Amazon, right?
Yeah, if you have the Kindle app on your Android device, you can't buy a book without it going through the Google Play Store payment processor.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Okay, same as on the yeah. Well, on the Apple one, on the Apple devices, you can't even buy them. Like you go and you can't. So when you go to, if I'm running the Kindle application, it basically just says you can't buy this. If I go to the Kindle app, I can't buy the book. I've got to go on the browser to buy. Because
Amazon did that because Amazon, they don't want to
pay the Apple tax.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So they could get in trouble for that because like that's what Epic kind of did too. Epic Games, you pay, you can pay through their website or whatever, but that got their app yeeted from both the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. So,
yeah, and I think that's the one thing I disagree with. I feel like you should be able to like be in the store and use your own payment service. If you can bring the audience to the app, you don't need the store. Like Epic doesn't need the store for people to find Fortnite. They've established that ability on their own. I think they deserve that, but they're also renting the device too. So there's got to be some charge there. They're taking advantage of the billions of dollars Apple has put into iOS. And
the market is built not because Fortnite's there. The Fortnite's there because the market's there already. Exactly. So yeah, they got to pay something. I agree, but maybe it's not maybe the amount is too high based on a percentage of sales or something. Maybe it's
just like there should be a fixed, and so I guess that's what they're all going to negotiate out, and I think Amazon's probably negotiated with Apple and like, come on, bro, like we can figure this out, we're trillionaires together, so let's figure it out.
Bezos and Cook like go out to lunch and
are we
hash it out?
Yeah, you're charging me for lunch. Really?
Who would pay?
But I own this restaurant.
Let's talk Microsoft Power Toys. So, either of you guys used Power Toys before?
No.
Okay.
Didn't even know it existed until
this is why I love this. This is why I love this, because a lot of people don't know that it does exist. It's basically a set of utilities that's supposed to be, it's called Power Toys, it's supposed to be more for power users, I guess. But it's something that doesn't come standard on Windows, but it's a whole bunch of like extra software kind of, you could think of it. Think of them as being just like little pieces of software that do little things, right? That's what it is. It's a collection of those. One application, you download it, you run it, and then you get access to all these extra cool things. So we go through some of my favorites real quick. I have been using this, and for one particular reason, actually a couple of reasons, which we'll get to at the end of this list. But some of the cool things that it does, like I like PowerToys Awake is cool. It'll keep your computer awake without having to change power and sleep settings. So if you want to set it up temporary, you can kind of keep it awake, which is super cool. Color Picker is really good. Color Picker, if you're a designer, you basically a keyboard command, and it will pull up an eyedropper system-wide. Doesn't matter what application you're in, you can pull a color from any image, any video, anything that's active on your screen at the time. It'll give you the hex, RGB, and HSL values. If you're doing any kind of design work, or if you've done any web design stuff, this is a killer feature. Just alone for that is great.
Yeah.
It's super cool. And it's just, built in. This is the new thing they've just added. And this is the reason why we're talking about this, because this recently just got added, this crop and lock. So you can basically draw a box around something. And there's a cool little demo video here where you draw a box around it, and it takes out all of the kind of the chrome around it, if you will, and makes a window with just the content that's in that box that you can then scroll.
That's
which is great
cool
if you're doing some kind of like,
exactly.
Like presentation, or you're doing a screencast of something and you want one little thing off to the side, or maybe you've got some kind of utility with some number that changes or something. You just want that number to be in a box. You could do that. There's a whole bunch of different uses for this. Yeah, very cool little feature. This is new. That's brand new. Yeah. Fancy zones I've never used, but zones on Windows, so you can drag windows around, right? So, which is great for an ultra wide. If you got an ultra wide monitor, I have my screen split right now. I have one on the left and one on the right. But this gives you even more access. It'll give you 3 boxes. It'll give you like 2 on one side, 1 on another. It'll give you like crazy configurations that the standard version of this doesn't give you.
What about the name Fancy Zones? It just sounds kind of weird.
Well, the whole name,
the naming of all of these are bad.
Yeah, Power Toys, just to begin with, is a terrible name.
We're talking about Microsoft. They are the worst at naming anything. So
I see the Fancy Zones, and I just hear that song. I'm so fancy.
Yeah, they're not good at naming any of these.
But I will say this on my Windows. I'm on a Mac OS, and I'm also have Windows in Parallels. That I think I am going to install that right now and use Fancy Zones, because when I'm presenting, I would love to lock off Visual Studio on one side and then my browser on the other. So maybe that'll help me out.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Image resize is great.
What's that about?
Quick way to just resize an image without going into a photo manipulation app, without loading up Photoshop.
Host file.
Yeah.
Oh, host file. I've never used this.
So that's when you have local hosts.
I edit my host file all the time.
Yeah, you have local hosts, and you can put a fake domain in there and stuff like that.
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, I use that in web design a lot, because like if I'm building a site, like on a new server, or like I'm changing the design, I can point my host file to this other server and like completely build the site and then upload it to the right site.
There you go. Well, there's an editor.
So,
yeah. There's an editor built in here.
The funny thing is, like,
it's just a file.
I know how to edit the file without but this looks like it's just an easy way to get to it. Because I mean, you have to go to like C, and then
Well, this gives you a form to fill in. A form and an interface is what it gives you.
Oh, yeah.
So a form, and then you can check them on and off, and it's just a nicer way than editing a text file.
It's just prettier. Yeah,
exactly.
I get it.
It's just exactly. Yep.
So the other thing too, Kevin, I don't know if you know this. At the same time today, they announced the retirement of WordPad.
Yeah,
kicking WordPad off. Anyway,
saw that.
What?
Power Tools gets brought in from the ghosts. WordPad gets kicked to the graveyard. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, kind of crazy. Peak is a great one. So the ones that I use that are in here, and the reason that I have this, are actually features that are in Mac OS that Windows didn't have, that PowerToys adds. And I think they're great. Exactly. So Peak is one. You can basically, in Explorer, you can highlight over a file. You can hit a key, it's like a control spacebar, and it will preview the file. It can be a video, image, audio, and it'll just preview the image. In Mac, you can just be in Finder and hit spacebar, and it'll preview the same thing.
You just had to hit space in Mac.
Hit spacebar and it previews it. Yeah, it doesn't load. So what it's not doing is it's not loading an application. Like if it's a PSD file, it won't load the whole thing. It'll just give me a preview of what that file is without opening the application that actually opens it. It's a quick way of looking at stuff.
So what I do for this for every single day is if I record a video for Kevin to edit and it's recorded locally, I'll hit spacebar on it to make sure sound is recorded and it doesn't sound weird, and before I send it over to him. Because it's so embarrassing when I send him a file and say, hey, man, I've got this done. You're like, dude, this has no sound. Was your mic on?
Yeah.
I'll redo
it. Because that's usually what happens, right? OBS hasn't recorded the sound. It's not like you've got to do it. Like, it just didn't record.
Usually my Focusrite had Phantom button pushed is what it is. But
like, sure, the system did it.
It's perfect. It's ready to go.
Peak is a great one, but my all-time favorite, worst name, Power Toys Run.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible, but here's what you do. On a Mac, Command Spacebar is a launcher for applications, right? It's a search bar, and you can put anything in that search bar and run the application. This is my choice of ways to launch apps on a Mac. There's a million ways you can do it, but I like that. I'll type it in, and let's say I want to run Teams. I'll just start typing Teams. It'll show me Teams, and I'll click Enter. Right. The equivalent of here is exactly the same. Here's the thing, too. You can change the key combination, so I've made it exactly the same key combination. So whether I run in Mac OS or Windows, Command Spacebar or Windows key Spacebar is the same for me. So doing that can run any application. I just start typing it and I run the app.
So that's like the same thing you can do in the bar now in Windows. They're at the bottom of the page.
It is. You can. Yeah, you can click down there and you can start typing. This is just a different interface. Mm-hmm. And I just prefer just doing it this way and then start typing and pressing Enter. Because it gets it right all the time, pretty much, if you're searching for the right app. And it's just, for me, it's easy because it's the same on both OSs. I don't have to remember, like, oh yeah, I'm on Windows. I gotta go down to the search bar and then type.
Right.
Like, it's going to give me one interface.
But you really don't. You can just tap the start button and then just say.
That's what I mean.
Terminal.
Yeah, you just.
And then I hit Enter. Like, I don't even need to put. I don't even need to get the space bar involved.
No, you can, but it brings up that like other interface. I just don't like that interface. I like this one because it looks exactly the same as the Mac does. It's literally stolen from Mac OS. I guarantee it.
Little search bar instead of the whole start menu.
No, I do. Yeah, that's it. That's all I want to do. I just want to do it that way.
Wow.
And there must be a reason there must be a reason this exists, right? There has to be. It's true,
yeah. Well, you like it, so there you go.
I think it's great. It's my favorite Power Toy app.
Why don't they just call it Fancy Run? You know.
Maybe that was the second name in running. I don't know, but Power Toys Run. Terrible name.
Oh, missed opportunity, Bobby.
I know. They should just called it fancy everything. Run. It's all fancy.
Right.
Here's the problem I have with Power Toys is it's hidden. No one knows about it. Why these aren't actually in the OS period, I have no idea. Why it's a third-party like application you have to install, I have no idea. It basically runs down in your taskbar. So it runs like a regular app does, like down in your taskbar. It's like, and so it's always running, and then you have keyboard commands to pull up each one of these different features that it has, each one of these utilities.
It's probably the
some are useful, some aren't. Probably.
They said fancy Windows is too good. You got to break that out. That's probably what
I'm certified in Microsoft stuff, like Microsoft Server or like Windows Server, Windows Desktop.
Yep.
No clue. No clue this was a thing.
That's how bad they are at this. That's literally just how bad they are at this. They're just not good at telling people about stuff that's actually cool. They're really not. Because here's the thing too. You can run Power Toys, you can install it. If you only like one of these, you can just toggle everything else off. Sure. You don't have to even have them on. There's a little like command interface that you get for each one of these. I don't know if they're like. See, some of these have been in Power Toys for a long time. It's been around for a while. It feels like it's a testing.
Always on top. That's amazing. I would totally use Always on Top.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like just little like I don't know quality of life things that you may or may not want, and you can turn them on or turn them off. Now, I don't know if this is like is Always on Top going to be a part of the OS in the future, and this is just a testing ground for it. I don't know. Because Power Toys has been around for a long time, and they seem to be the same features have been in here for a long time, and they've never made it into a version of Windows. So I really don't know. It's just kind of weird. It's like a little hidden gem, I guess.
Like, our users don't really want fancy features, but if you do, here they are. And I'm a diehard Microsoft user, so I feel
maybe that's what they'll call the next version instead of Windows 12. They'll just call it Fancy Windows.
They can't because they won't be able to have it in the EU. They'll have to take out. You're right, though. Maybe this is the thing. They had to take out all these powerful features so that they could get it by the EU board or whatever, so they could actually have this stuff.
No longer
always
a
on top.
gatekeeper, doesn't have the fancy tools.
Because the guy that's running the EU likes Linux. He's like, you got to do it from the command line, people. That UI, it's too good.
That's it.
If you're not using keyboard shortcuts for all the things.
Okay, so I thought this week we played a little game of this or that. So I basically just came up with a bunch. You guys haven't seen these. So some of them will be softball, start us off with. Some of them, I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. We can argue over them. I know Bobby's going to argue over at least one of these.
Sweet.
So let's start out. Mac or PC?
PC, 100%. I just said it.
This one's a tough one for Bobby. I know this one's a tough one for Bobby.
I have to pick one?
Yes, you have to pick one.
If I had to pick one, it has to be Windows just because of the way dev works. But man, a Mac M2, M3 chip computer just is a game changer as far as the hardware.
But you're saying PC?
I have to. Like Visual Studio only runs on PC now, so that's just the way it is.
Since Microsoft canned the Mac version, which was never going to get feature parity with the PC version.
I guess I can move to the EU and petition them to make Visual Studio run on something else. Has to run on Mac OS. Make them.
I will say, make them do. I will say, as a PC user, I've never had to install Mac OS to run in parallel on my computer, but I know a lot of Mac users that have to install Windows in parallel. So.
I do it every day. We use it every day.
Yeah, but here's the thing, you see, Sarah. I can have Mac OS and Windows on the same machine.
But why would you want to?
Because I prefer Mac.
No, I'm saying, if I'm a PC, I have no reason to install a Mac OS. I have no purpose
I see what you're saying. Okay, well, yeah. I just prefer Mac OS as an OS, as a hardware, as everything. I'm going Mac. If I had to pick one, I'm picking Mac. I've had a Mac for a lot longer than I've had a PC. I've had PCs. I have a PC right now. We're streaming on one. I'm choosing the PC today. But overall, if I had to pick one, I'm.
And I do think this. I do think the M series chips is a game changer. I can tell you that if I made a 45-minute video on Windows and I was doing encoding out of Premiere on an Intel machine, that encoding was like 2x, which means if it's 45 minutes, it's going to take an hour and a half to render. Now, if I make a 45-minute video and I render it out on my Pro Studio, whether I'm in Windows or on Mac OS, 3 or 4 minutes. I will give you the hardware on that. The hardware is just crazy good. So Windows, in fact, when we were looking for replacement machines, and so we went through a phase where we bought all Windows Surface Books. And we liked the hardware at first, and then the dongle didn't work. They would all constantly go on and off. They were terrible. I had 3 to 4 of them where they just split apart, where they were just where they got overheated and they just come apart. And we just recently switched everyone to Mac hardware. But that's a Surface Book. It's a $3,000 laptop.
Lenovo. Yeah. Lenovo is my jam. Yeah. I love my Lenovos. I've got a ThinkPad X1. It's just a beast. I love it. So
every instructor here at Codeframe has a Mac Mini. I have a Mac Studio, and they all run Parallels and teach from Windows from Parallels. Kevin Kevin has he's got multiple Macs. He's got a trash can. It should be in the trash can now.
That I don't use. It's actually back here. I don't think you can't see it. It's actually back here.
That's the cylinder Mac. That's when they were in their weird phase. It was just a weird design. The whole thing was weird when we got it.
It was. It's actually in the box. I don't use it now. I use a MacBook Pro.
But the new hardware Mac Minis, now the M3 and the Mac Minis that coming out this year, it's crazy.
Yeah, Intel and AMD have to do something to catch up with the processors. They have to keep up with that stuff. It's kind of crazy. We'll see.
Hopefully I guess I don't know, man. It may make me look at JetBrains because I could get JetBrains and run Rider and code on Mac. That's probably what I would do. So I'm gonna revise I have to go Windows. We have to teach people. If it was just me, I'd probably run Rider on Mac. But since I teach people, I'd have to be on Windows.
One of the benefits too of having using Parallels and using a virtual machine is you get a clean install every time.
Every
cohort
to
install, and it's just like
over.
yeah,
it's true.
when you're teaching somebody something, you get a clean. You're on the same level playing field that they are. So installing stuff is like it's nice and easy, and having like doing presentations through a virtual machine is great. Just spin it up, and you have as many as you like, and you just flick between them. It's a good environment.
Virtual machines are awesome. I do love virtual machines.
And I'm not saying that's a Mac thing entirely.
Right.
It's
like,
it can be, you can get those on PC
not
too.
Just you guys.
No. But
it's
you get the best of both.
Parallels as a piece of software that runs on the Mac makes the VM, like I've used VMware and it works pretty decent. Yeah. But Parallels is like a cut above all of those others as far as like setting up VMs, as far as them running seamless between. It's really nice. Sure. And that's not Apple's thing. That's just another company that innovated.
Right.
Hello EU.
Right.
I know I'm not
weird.
that made Parallels that beat Boot Camp. They beat Boot Camp beat the brakes off Boot Camp. And then so Mac they don't even make it anymore. There's like
they don't. No, Boot Camp was the native way to dual boot. That was at an OS level, it was at more of a hardware level, and they quit doing it. They don't have that anymore. It's not an option on the newer Macs. Maybe because of the silicon, I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know. But Parallels was always a better way to do it anyway. Yeah,
just you had to pay for it.
That's not possible. You can't build better hardware or software. Like
they do it.
It's all topped out. We're there. There's no more up to go.
Let's do let's do another softball one. Android or Apple, along the same lines.
Android.
You're talking about mobile phones?
I'm sure.
Okay. So mobile phones. I'm obviously
what
using.
Else could you be talking about?
I'm using a Samsung now, so I use a Samsung S23. That's what I have. So, and I've bought multiple Samsungs recently, so I would just be Android at this point.
Okay.
I'm also Samsung Android.
Okay. Yeah. You know mine. It's Apple.
Yeah.
What?
Here's one that you're not going to like, Bobby. I know you're not. PlayStation or Xbox? And you've got to pick one.
I have to pick one?
You've got to pick one.
But you left one out.
I know I have that. I've intentionally left it out.
You left out the PC Master Race.
Hold on, you have to pick one. Don't worry, we'll get to it.
PC Master Race.
PlayStation or Xbox?
So the only thing I have 4 Xboxes in my house, so I would pick Xbox.
Well, Xbox it is then.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an Xbox.
Yeah, that's what we did. We played a game back in the day, Serious Sam, with my 2 boys and myself, and we would like network them together and play it together. Shoot monsters.
It's awesome.
We're PlayStation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weirdest controller ever. It's like.
Okay, you guys want to know something? My husband like completely makes fun of the way I'm not a big gamer, but there's a few games that I like, and one of them is a PlayStation exclusive. So that's probably there's other PlayStation exclusives.
Uncharted?
No, but my husband loves that one.
Uncharted's great.
Take into account who I am and what I love, and go from there.
Oh, you like Kingdom of Hearts, don't you?
That's the one.
It's not a serious game. That's a different kind.
No, but okay. I have not a PlayStation controller here just because I have my Switch in here. But this is how I hold controllers, and everybody thinks I'm insane.
Yes, you are.
Oh. Hey, that's okay. Wow. You know those are called thumbsticks, right?
Yeah,
they're the twin sticks. No. You got to learn to rock the twin sticks, man.
I can't do it.
This is why you're not good at games, is because you hold the controller that way.
They're designed to hold in both hands like this, right? It's like...
anytime like anyone in my family walks by me playing, they're like, "You are weird, Mom."
I've never seen that in my whole life.
I've seen some alternative ways to hold them. There are some things called like claw method where you use different ways to hover over the buttons with your fingers. I've seen that, but I've never seen like straight top over holding. I've never seen that method.
I'm holding on to them with my thumbs.
Right. That's got to hurt your hands after a while. That's got to cramps got to set in.
No, I can't.
Like typing, you're holding it like you're typing on a keyboard.
Well, you know what? I use my keyboard a whole lot, but because I don't have the coordination. I think to move my thumb to the different buttons. I need I don't know. It's the whole home row thing,
So keyboard and mouse or controller then?
Yeah.
I'm still rocking the twin sticks, man.
You controller? Okay. Yeah. So you keyboard then, Sarah? If you have a choice, keyboard all the way?
If I have a choice, I am keyboard all the way. Like, man, I can look over here and like type out a whole thing, Like my typing speed is very fast. I haven't done it in a long time, but yeah, okay. I've got a pretty high typing rate.
I don't know which I would go with. That's actually kind of a tough one for me because I use both. I'd probably go controller.
So the reason I go controller is I game in my living room, so I sit on a couch.
Yeah,
and I use my television, 75-inch television. And then
if I have a choice here, you could.
Like, just bring it with you.
Yeah, but it's hard to do it in your lap. I think it's super difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's got to be at the height.
You have to have
for gaming. It is anyway. Sort. Yeah. Okay, PC or console then?
PC all the
way.
For
gaming?
Yeah, for gaming?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, PC. That's the master race. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah. I'll go console just because I don't play very many PC games. Okay. Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts and SSX, the snowboarding game. Those are my games. That's a good Except game. For I have a new game, but I'm going to save that for my not.
Okay. Oh, I like it. Awesome. I'm going to go console just for accessibility reasons. I like both. I would say PC games you can get a better, you can play the similar games on them. You can play with the controller these days. They do pretty good at that. But just for playing it on the TV and for the cost, I'm going to go with console. Yeah. A good gaming PC is $3,000. A console is $500.
Yeah.
I'm going for it's almost apples and oranges, right?
But you have a PlayStation and Xbox though, don't you? Or you just have PlayStation?
I don't have a PS5. I didn't buy a PS5. I have a PS4.
You never got one. You were just like, I never get it.
I could never get one when I wanted one. Now I just refuse to buy one.
Yeah, like you gave up.
Yeah. Okay, Spotify or Apple Music?
Well, let's think about where Sarah's gonna fall on this one. So it's a stumper.
Okay, we know yours.
Spotify.
So I don't pay for music services, but if I did, it would be Apple, just because if I listen to music, it's on my coding machine, and I would probably listen to it on Mac. So I do listen to some albums I've bought, which is the Destiny soundtrack, best gaming music in the industry. I have 8 soundtracks from them. So traditionally, if I listen to music, it's usually when I'm coding, and then it's on iTunes when I do it, or Apple Music, whatever you call it these days.
Yeah, it's Apple Music these days. Yeah.
So I will say, back in the day, I was a huge Google Music fan. Loved that platform.
You were the user.
I was the one, the only one.
Yeah.
But then when they switched it to YouTube Music, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
And that's when I switched to Spotify because the interface on YouTube Music is just the
even
worst.
playing your local files on your Android device is not a good experience. I have all my music in local files, some of them.
Right.
And trying to find those and browse to them, it doesn't want you to find them. It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
I've got them on my device. So.
Yeah, that's not the way to listen to music these days, is it? The days of owning and having the physical files is long gone. We are way into the streaming generation now. It's because you have access to everything pretty much. Something comes out, I go listen to it. It's just easy.
The one thing that I think is absolute magic, and it may make me actually switch to an iPhone one day, is the ability and Google does this okay. Apple is on steroids for it's if I have something on one device, it's on the other. Kevin told me about this, and I did it. I have a MacBook here. I opened up my MacBook on Studio, and I've had these things for years, and I didn't know you could do this. I can literally mouse from my PC, my Studio Pro, over to my MacBook wirelessly just because it's turned on. I can cut and paste between them. I can move them across. You just could never do that on Windows.
Cut and paste all the time between my Mac and my phone. All the time.
It's crazy good. So that's the one thing where I would say if I could do that, I might switch to an iPhone just so that I can move devices. Because I would love to get, if I bought music from somewhere and I moved it from my device here, I can move it to my phone easier. now I have to like put it in Dropbox and get the Dropbox. And
I think streaming is just the way for content these days. For music, it is like you just make a library and you don't even have to download it to your phone anymore. It just streams the whole thing.
Like it's just $10 a month. It's another monthly fee, man.
Right.
You know?
It is, unless you get the Apple One subscription, whatever, where it's like it bundles in Drive and music and TV and all of the things in one subscription.
Oh, what does that cost these days?
I think $24 a month. For multiple users, so there's two of us use it. So
and that includes Apple Plus and Apple TV.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh. Okay.
Yep. It's all of it.
Bobby's like, look at Mom.
I'm already paying for Apple TV, so
yeah.
I will say I have all like my MP3s uploaded to my Plex server.
Yeah, Plex.
And I can play all my ripped MP3s on my Plex.
I have a drive somewhere full of MP3s, and I know I still have it. It's in one of these drawers because I've kept all my drives. If I get rid of a machine, I keep the drive. It's like the one thing I'm not gonna like because I don't. First, I don't know what's on it. Secondly, I would have to destroy it, and I don't. Because I don't want to put it out there and have somebody recover everything that's on it, and I don't know what's on it, like personal data wise. Right. It's like I don't want to just throw it out there in the wild, so I just keep them. So I've got a whole bunch of drives, and on one of them somewhere is my MP3 collection from the good old days of when we weren't
of iTunes or like your iPod.
Yes, let's just call it iTunes.
Napster. I think all of my MP3s are from when like I ripped all my CDs to to the iPod.
I'm not saying I was big in Napster and LimeWire, but let's just say that I didn't own all the CDs that are probably on that drive. I don't know. It was a big thing.
I remember all that. Napster was amazing. LimeWire is the quickest way to get a virus on your computer.
It was terrible.
Does it still exist?
Awful.
I don't know.
It was a virus delivery system. That's what it was.
Just reinstall the OS every so often. You'll be fine.
Yeah, it was just awful.
The last IT firm I worked for though had a drive destroyer. It would punch into the drive.
Yep, so, that's what you need. Yeah, I've definitely gone in there with like a
bring
knife.
It there.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, I've got a couple drives I need destroyed. Thanks, I'll see you later.
Mine is just in my drawer here. If somebody robbed me, I guess they'd have all my drives from. That would be a thing they would take. Okay, Facebook or Instagram?
I'm gonna say Instagram, just because it's a tough call. My audience is mostly on Instagram, but I do love Facebook groups. The only reason I go to Facebook anymore is because of the groups that I'm in. So if these people could create some good Discord servers or Reddit threads, I would never have to go to Facebook, but it's all about the groups.
I'm just going to shout out again to the EU. I use neither one of these things. So I'm on Threads a little bit.
They're
I'm on Twitter.
Gatekeeper, Bobby.
I know. It's I have to use them. I don't use either one of them, but I am on, I would say my top social media is LinkedIn, and then Twitter after that. And then obviously YouTube. We're big into YouTube. So I am on YouTube quite a bit, answering comments to people on our YouTube channel, but I haven't been on Facebook in 12 years, probably. I bet you the last time I logged in was 12 years ago. I very rarely log into Instagram. Very rarely.
I use Instagram more. Mine will be Instagram over Facebook. I quit it a couple of years back, but Instagram I use, but not a lot. Yeah.
So I will say, now that we've discussed it a little bit more, for content creation, I'm going to say Instagram, as a creator, but I don't consume content on Instagram at all. I hate stories. I rarely browse reels. Most of my social media time is spent either on Facebook looking at groups. So it's just my feed of groups, and then YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube.
Yeah, I do too. And then that's the reason we need to tax the crap out of Facebook, is because everyone's on Instagram, obviously.
Right.
When really it's not.
Obviously.
It's very separated. It's just so crazy. I don't know. I'm not going to let it go, Kevin.
But let's move on.
Everything's going back to the EU for Bobby today.
It makes me crazy.
Threads or the application formerly known as Twitter?
So weirdly enough, Kevin, I know we're separate on this. Well, you've been banned, so you were forced out of Twitter.
I have no choice to pick one here.
But I still like the Twitter interface. Maybe it's because I just like it better. And I find myself running to posting on Twitter more than I do Threads. And Threads is always, oh yeah, I got to push that out to Threads. And sometimes I forget to do it. Maybe that's habit. I know they're mostly the same and they're practically identical, but I don't know why I feel like Twitter is better. But it's really the same.
One of them is run by a slightly nicer dictator than the other. I don't know.
I'm actually with you, Bobby. So recently, my YouTube channel, I got a notification on the YouTube channel saying that I had invalid traffic and they were going to limit my ads on my videos. And my revenue on my channel has dipped over 80%. Like,
wow, golly,
wow.
For the last month. It's been insane. And so I actually thought it was like, there was something wrong with my account. But somebody in one of my Facebook groups mentioned that was happening to them and that there was more people on Twitter that it was also happening to. So I went to Twitter, or the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, to like reach out to these people that were also having this invalid traffic. It's clearly a bug because it all happened at the same, like around the same day. To all of these different creators. And there's some huge creators on that, like over 100,000 subscriber creators that are having the same thing. So if you just do a Google search, or not a Google search, a social media platform formerly known as Twitter search for invalid traffic, you'll see all of this stuff, or just go to my Twitter.
I'm going to land in the conspiracy zone on this thing. I think it's YouTube trying to cut off creators and coming up with a reason not to pay us. Personally, I don't think there is no freaking way that the amount of hundreds of dollars we make per month based on the views we have, there's a lot more ads running on our channel than that. And our revenue is 20% of what it was 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
20%.
Yep.
We've lost 80% of, now we don't rely on this revenue, but if you're a creator and you rely on that revenue, I mean, this is why I think YouTube is ripe for the taking. Apparently in the filings, when Google released their filings last year, YouTube doesn't make money. Shocking. I didn't know that. And I think they're trying to find ways not to pay creators. And I think that's why Twitch or somebody can disrupt these people. I think TikTok has definitely hurt YouTube's business for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Some of these creators, I'm like, they're posting their revenue, like, their ad thing, and it's literally just whoosh, and that's, mine dropped off a cliff too. And what's frustrating about it is they're saying I have invalid traffic. I'm like, well, I'm not driving.
Whose fault
traffic.
Is that?
Right.
It's not mine.
Right. Like, if you're detecting invalid traffic, shut it down.
Yeah.
Like,
at least tell me where it's coming from.
Right. And they don't. Like, they're just like, hey, well,
you know where it's
stop telling your friends to.
It's coming from Google.
No, and literally, so I'm in a social media platform formerly known as Twitter DM group with like a bunch of these other creators, and most of their views come from search, and same with mine. Most of my views come from search, and so that's like really the common denominator we're seeing. So if your search algorithm is sending invalid traffic to my video, that's not my fault. Why are you punishing me? Anyway, all this to say, I didn't go to Threads to talk about this. I went to social media platform formerly known as Twitter to talk about it. Yeah. And that's really where I see conversations and like real-time events still happening, because it's easy to search. Although Threads is saying they're releasing search like this week or so.
Any day now. Yeah, they're testing it in Australia and New Zealand, I think, is what I've read.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be key for sure. But like, it's just too hard to find anything that you really like. I want to talk about this topic. You can't do that in Threads.
No, you can't at the moment. We need the search before we can do that. Yeah, definitely. So following on from that, then Musk or Zuck? So you guys have chosen Twitter.
This one. I've been yelling.
So you going Musk on this then, because you chose Twitter?
Personally, I think you have to just make like choices here and rule out.
Oh yeah, we're talking about. Oh, I understand. We're talking about the lesser of two evils here. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I understand this is not like a who do I want to be best friends with. Like this is one or the other.
Scale of accomplishment, I'm more impressed with what Musk has done in his career than Zuckerberg. I think Zuckerberg built a thing, and he's done a really good job at monetizing Facebook. I could have never done that. It's really great. But I mean, he's launched rockets. He's landed rockets. Like he's satellite network. He's got cars. He probably has tunnels all under the U.S. where you can get, I don't know what he's doing, but like,
I don't know. He's still taking that jet places.
Yeah, his black eye is Twitter. And if he's probably going to regret ever buying it. And I think that's the thing where a lot of people don't like him is just because of Twitter. And I think that he brings a lot of his own problems. But if I had to pick one that I like more, I guess I like Elon more.
Okay.
But it's close.
It is close. Like Bobby brought up some really good points that like I think it maybe tipped me one way or the other, but I Mike, I think you've changed my mind. Because I was originally going to say Zuckerberg just because I am of the idea of like be professional in professional spaces.
He is professional. I'll give him that. Yeah.
Right. And that's the big problem I actually have with Donald Trump is like, it's just not how I see my president, like a professional presidential person. Like I could care less about like, policies and stuff like that. Like I just don't connect with you because I feel like you are not professional. And so that's the big problem I have with Elon is like, just be professional in professional spaces and like be crazy other places. But, think about the consequences of your actions. Don't just act, and things like that. So that's what I'm going to have to say, Zach. But Bobby, you were right there almost changing my mind because I'm like, oh, it's true. He has done a lot of like really great things.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of either, but I'm going Zuck too, just because I'm picking them based on not on business achievements, but on totally how they are personally.
Yeah. That's similar to me.
I could see myself like speaking with Zuckerberg. I could never see myself speaking with Elon Musk. I just don't think he's capable of holding a conversation with a normal person in a normal place without trying to troll something. Like I just don't see it.
Can.
And I'd like to talk to Zuckerberg about the next
meds that day. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the next headset with Zuckerberg too. So I guess I don't know.
I mean, he might just be evil genius. Like he's doing all of this on purpose, and like all press is good press. So I could give him that, but
yeah, maybe let's do one more, and then we'll talk about our null not nulls. EU or US? Okay, let's move on to our final section then, our null not null recommendation section. Anybody have a null this week? No? We're all recommending. Okay, great. So let's go with you first, Sarah. Let's go with your null.
Like, I feel like I had a null like a couple of days ago. I was like, oh, I should do a null on that. And then I don't even remember what it was. But
okay. It must not have been that bad.
It must not have been. I think it might have been Nick Bosa, but now it's...
Because he wouldn't sign.
It actually was Nick Bosa. I remember now. Yeah.
I love it. That's great. How things can change.
I was getting super pissed at him. Anyway, but this has been around for a while, but a new game. I'm not a big gamer, but my Switch. And I've been playing Illusion Island, which is a new Disney-based.
Oh.
Shocking.
I have not heard of this.
It's super cute. Like I said, I'm a cutesy. I love my Mario. I love SSX. But yeah, Illusion Island. It's been really fun. It's just like a side scroller and
platformer.
Yeah. And
okay.
And it's really fun. Like I play as Minnie Mouse and
Very
I go
cool.
for it.
Yeah, I've never owned a Switch.
Switches is really fun. Like I'm gonna say, so because this is my not null, like they really did a good job on this because with the PlayStation Vita and things like that, like handheld game, like big gaming platforms have really not gone well, but they really nailed it. I think with the way it can just like plug in and then you can just play it on the
I like
TV.
that idea of playing it on the screen and then plugging it in and it just being on the TV at the same time. Having that like interoperability thing is kind of cool.
And then you just like, you take these off, or you can use...
How do you hold those controllers?
Yeah.
You don't want to know. It's like back here somewhere.
I think I hold them fairly normal just because like the Illusion Island... Is it still not normal?
That's normal now. That's very normal now. That's the point. The point is now it's become very normal. Now there's a screen in the middle. Now you've got the controller right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I like the Switch. But with Illusion Island, it's like I'm really just using like one jump button.
Okay.
So I don't feel the need, like when I'm playing Kingdom Hearts, I need the multiple buttons. So like if I had to use multiple buttons, I'd probably go with this, but yeah, I like my Illusion Island. It's a really cute game.
Very cool.
And I like the Switch. Like really, my not null is the Switch. Because I think it's a good platform.
I like it. Bobby, what you got?
We're going on a theme here because the raid race for Destiny 2. A lot of people don't know this. I'm an avid Destiny 2 player, and we have the world's first raid, Crota's Raid, and basically, it's a contest where all the best people on the planet start at the beginning at the same time, and the first team through wins. They have a world raid race. So for me, it's time to compete on a really kind of epic scale where you can like think you have a shot. And I'm more like U.S. soccer. I have no shot, but like but like I think I do. Like I think I'm going to win. But our team, we didn't. We beat the world's first in the last raid 6 months ago. This one we didn't complete in time, and only 4,000 teams completed. But the way I look at raiding is I get to play with my son is on the raid team and a lot of friends. It's a really 6v6, a 6-person activity. It's a lot of fun. Even if you don't win, you stay up all night, you try to beat it, and I can't wait till the next one in February.
We're into year 7 on this thing coming.
Wow.
I've been playing this since 2014. Yeah.
Crazy.
The final shape comes out in February, and that will be the end of this saga. And so this raid they think is coming out in February will be the most epic, hardest thing they've ever put out. And so we're looking forward to that.
Bungie moved on to a new game, right? What's their latest? What's their next game?
Well, they got marathons coming out, Bungie does, and they've got a third game that hasn't been announced yet.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, Marathon was the next game that I had seen.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell everybody what your birthday is.
January 1, 1990. Of course.
Obviously.
Yeah, this is the next. So I guess people they're moving on to the whatever this next platform is, and this other game that you said. But
Destiny's been part of my life for like a decade or more. So like, it's fun to play with a group of people. I like co-op. As I get older, I'm less about PvP, more about PvE, and playing in a co-op group of friends. I'm not as quick with it as I used to be, but like I still have a lot of fun. And it's not to say I suck at the game. I'm actually pretty decent, but like we failed right at the end. We got close, but we'll come back.
Anyone wants to do one-on-one Bobby in the Crucible? That's you can go check him out.
Yeah, if you want some of that smoke, I'll definitely give it to you.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't Destiny an Xbox exclusive?
No, it's on PC.
No, it's
everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
It's
and it is free to play too.
Because Halo was Xbox exclusive.
Halo was. Halo was. Yeah, it is free to play too. Not the expansions aren't, but the base game is free to play. So which is great. Yeah.
I will say, if you want to jump into Destiny now, it's a pretty good time. But play for free is like anything else. You need to pay for it if you're truly going to play with other people that are already playing. If you jump in there on the free for play, there's like a lot of things you just can't do.
Free
and then in the community, hey man, let's go to the raid, and you're like, oh, you're the free guy, you can't.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's cool if you don't know if you're going to like the game though, because you get a good feeling.
You're the green bubble here.
Yeah, exactly. You're the green bubble.
The green bubble of
and it's kind of funny. So like you can like queue up for the activity, and you got 6 people in there, and like under your name tag will be this red border. It's just like calls you out big time.
It is the green bubble.
That's can't funny. Get in. You need to pay. But I love Destiny. It's a good co-op game. It's rated T, so it's it's pretty family friendly, believe it or not.
Okay,
So,
my not know for this week. I'm going to do a couple of podcasts.
Ooh.
You know what the number one podcast is this week?
No.
In both Spotify and Apple?
The Not
Pretty much
Null
across the
Podcast.
board.
I was saying the Not Null Podcast. Family
In our
Tech Talk.
dreams.
Both
In
of
our
those.
dreams,
Yeah.
right? No, it is Strike Force 5, which is...
I literally saw that in my Spotify when I opened it today, and I was
there
like,
you go.
Oh, what's
Well,
that?
it's the number one podcast. So,
Yeah,
it is
that'd be
basically... It is Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, and Seth Meyers. So...
the Strike podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
I got you.
Strike Force 5, yeah. So there's 5 of them. So, and it's about the strike, because they're all on strike, so they've got no writers to write their show.
I get it. Yeah.
So they're doing a podcast. So they all got together and they're doing a podcast. So these guys all work for separate networks. They all work on different shows and they're doing a podcast together. So here's what happened. I've listened. There's 2 shows out already. It's insider baseball into TV production, into chat shows, into guests. They talk stuff about guests that have been on the shows. It's super interesting. It's really cool. It's a bit of insider baseball is what it is.
Okay.
And they seem to be able to talk freely. I don't think no network's telling them not to say anything. It's kind of crazy. They make fun of the fact that they don't have writers, so they're not funny. It is funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great because they don't, right? They're showing up and saying what they really think about stuff versus what John Oliver made a joke about. He's saying stuff that will probably be liable here because he's not got a lawyer telling him what he can and cannot say. And it's true.
Awesome.
They are they are seemingly very honest about what they're talking about here. So
that's cool.
It's well worth listening to. They promised to do 12 episodes. So we're going to get 12. So the first 2 are out.
Yeah.
They're an hour each. Definitely worth listening to.
Similar to this, I'm going to say, if you like comedy podcasts, Fly on the Wall is one of my favorite podcasts.
Okay. I've not heard that one.
It's David Spade and
okay.
Why can't I think of Garth's name?
Yes, I know who you
Dana
mean.
Carvey.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like Garth. Fly on the Wall. I would probably say podcast.
That's because I'm already on. See, that's what's bad about Apple search here. That's not very smart, is it? I'm already in there. I'm looking for a podcast here, so
you're like, clearly I want to see the podcast.
Yeah, like, come on.
But it's kind of similar because they talk a lot about like the behind the scenes of SNL and stuff like that. And
I like that stuff when the kind of the guides are off. Like they can say whatever they like on a podcast. I think it's kind of cool.
Right. And then they interview, like, look at all these people like Will Forte, Tony Hawk, Julia Sweeney, Steve Martin Short. Like they have awesome guests and they just like the Adam Sandler one is really funny.
Okay.
Like if you go back to like the beginning, the one they always talk about John Lovitz and
okay.
Like there's one with John Lovitz, but like apparently he used to always say like jealous, and so like they do that, and like so my husband and I do that one all the time, like jealous, because you can hear it in the John Lovitz voice. But anyway,
yep.
I'm like if you like that Strike Force 5, I bet you would really like this one too.
What I find fascinating about this, Kevin, is just how we are living in this time of where global or like big media is being absolutely disrupted by 5 dudes and a mic.
Yeah.
And I'll make another callback. If the EU ever needed to know, like anything can be disrupted. CBS, ABC, and NBC and Fox have all been disrupted by entertainment, which is just, you would think wouldn't work, but like these people are getting millions and millions and millions of views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just because you can get on and talk about it and be interesting, you can find your marketplace. And we hope that not Null reaches heights, but like, you can look at some of these people and it's just like, man, they can make entertainment without a network. Who would have thought? You would have never thought that 10 years ago that was even possible.
No, if you look at what's in the charts, like it's not all network stuff at the top. It's a lot of independent stuff.
A lot
which
of
is great
stuff. Darknet Diaries, I was listening to that the other night. It's that's a great podcast.
My other podcast recommendation to you, by the way, is this one. This is more for the English folks, because this one was not in the top 200 in the US charts, but it was in the top 10 in the UK.
Right.
Oh, okay? Funny.
So this guy, if you've ever seen The In-Betweeners, this guy is from The In-Betweeners, James Buckley. It's a very funny show. It's very immature comedy.
Very, very. Is it English comedy? Is it very?
It's very English. It's very immature.
Is it Benny Hill?
It's not Benny Hill, but it's very English. You got The In-Betweeners is amazing, but it's gross college humor is what it is.
Yeah.
But he's a very funny
Monty
character
Python.
in it. It's not really Monty Python.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, English
no,
humor.
but I agree.
I can do Monty Python.
Okay, yeah. This guy and his wife have a podcast now. He's no longer, like, this was a decade ago. He was doing The In-Betweeners. There's a podcast now. We're talking about being married, and they're very funny. It's a show technically it's going to technically be about marriage, but it's really about them, and they argue, and it's funny. They have 2 kids, and they talk about like what they're, it's funny stuff. It's great. The first 2 were really, really funny. Both extremely funny, and they have way less ratings than the other one. And again, it was top 10 in the UK, but didn't even make the charts in the US. So it's like nobody here knows this guy.
For sure.
But he's very popular in the UK. So yeah,
cool.
Definitely worth looking at.
We're gatekeeping podcasts too in America here. That's what we're
right.
doing, Kevin.
Right.
Apparently,
the Strike Force 5. You can't get it in the UK. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, well that's it for this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. This was kind of long, I think. I don't know what this is going to edit down to, but we've been here for a minute. Hopefully, this is going to be over an hour. I know that's going to be that long. So it's going to take me a minute to edit, but it's all good. I'll keep as much in as we can. I'll cut that bit where we said that one thing about that one thing that we're going to have to cut.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that one for sure.
Yeah. We could never say that and get away with it.
No,
so I'm definitely cutting that. We can't say. We cutting it.
NSFW.
So you guys, you won't hear that bit. Sorry. Come back next week. We'll have another one of these. Episode 31. We'll into the 30s next week.
Did we ever get an email to that AOL account?
No, I looked. Nobody emailed us. Yeah.
Bummer.
So yeah, if you want to email us, you can be the first. The Not Null Podcast at AOL.com is now our official email address. You can go ahead and email us something there, and I'll read it out on the show.
Love it.
Please do. And leave us a rating somewhere if you want to do that too. That'd be much, much, much appreciated. And we'll catch everybody next week.